Kiddushin Daf Ayin Daled Amud Aleph, the power of intuition, shudא dadeyni. We're learning about a new concept for us in the Gemara, which is shudא dadeyni. It did come up in Masechta Ksubas, but we didn't do a matmon on that piece. And shudã dadeyni, we'll see three different ways of understanding what it is and how it works, but it's the ability of the dayanim, of the judges on a Beis Din, to make a decision not based on fact, or based on very vague fact. Our Gemara talks about the ne'emonos, the belief, the reliability of a judge. Ne'eman dayan lomar lezeh zachiti ulezeh chiyavti. A judge can say, after the court case, there's an argument about what was actually said, they've lost the records. The judge is believed to say, I paskened in favor of Reuven and against Shimon. That only applies as long as the Baalei Dinim are still there, the litigants are still present. But if they've already gone off, explains Rashi, the Dayan already puts the idea away from his mind. He's on to the next case already. But if the Baalei Din are still there, the litigants are still there, the next case has not yet come before him, then he's believed to say, the Dayan, we rely on the Dayan to say, I remember which one. Aval ein Baalei Din ondim lefanov einu ne'eman. But if they're not there, they can't. Ask the Gemara, let's just see who's got the written document. When the Beis Din makes a decision, they give the decision to the hands of the one who won the case. It's been lost, it's torn. No, this is the important question. Ask the Gemara, says, judge again. Start again. If you don't remember whether it was Reuven or Shimon, so do the case again. Answers the Gemara, b'shudא dadeyni. This was a case of shudא dadeyni. Says Rashi, this is a case bedin she'eino talui b'tam el hakol b'fiv shel dayan. The dayan used his authority of shudã dadeyni to make a decision that wasn't based on absolute logic, but lemishi yitnadev leva dayan lomar nireli shezeh haya ragil etzlo yoter. He can use extraneous information that he knows about that didn't even come up in the case. So the question could be, did Reuven give this gift to Shimon or to Levi? Or the case in Ksubas we've got, a mother gives a gift to one son and later gives the same gift to another son. Now both sons claim the gift is theirs, which one is it? And the Dayan says, I know the family and I know that the mother's closer to this son than that son, so I'm assuming she gave it to the son she's closer with. That isn't a fact that came up in the case, but it's a fact that the Dayan is allowed to use. And now they're worried if they rejudge the case, the Dayan might see things differently. It's on such a fragile basis, it's not on hard facts. The litigant said, I don't want to, certainly the one who won in the court case says, I don't want to go back to court again. Who knows what the Dayan will say? It's not as if this was argued on clear facts and on clear svara, on clear logic. The other case that we've got, which is important for our Gemara, is the case in Ksubis, where the mother of Rami Bar Chama, Katvinu lenachse Rami Bar Chama betzafra, she gave property to her son Rami Bar Chama in the morning. L'urta, in the evening, she wrote it, or gave the same property to Ukva Bar Chama, to Rami Bar Chama's brother. And Rami Bar Chama came to Rav Sheshis and he said to you right, the property is yours. Atamar Ukva lekama de Rav Nachman. Rav Ukva went to Rav Nachman, to a different Dayan, and Rav Nachman said, it's yours. Ata Rav Sheshis lekama de Rav Nachman. So Rav Sheshis came to Rav Nachman. The two Dayanim meet. Omale, my time of it, Marhachi. How could you have done that? I'd already made a determination, says Rav Sheshis. How could you turn over my decision? Omale, my time avad Marhachi. He says, on what basis did you make your determination? Omale de Kadim, he says, because the gift to Rami Bar Chama came first. We don't deal with hours of a day here. In Bovel, when we deal with documents, we deal by the date, not the hour, not the time. And on my time of it, so Rav Shesha says to you, okay, and Rav Nachman, on what basis did you give it to Rav Ukva Bar Chama? Amale shudא dadeyni. He said, I used my authority as shudã dadeyni. Amale ananami shudã dadeyni. So I too, Rav Shesha says, I also used this right that I have to make a determination, even without getting into detailed fact. Amale chada the anadaynu amalav dayan. You can't do shudã dadeyni. I'm the Dayan here. You're a big Talmid Chacham, but you're not the Dayan. You can't use shudã dadeyni. Now we'll see what that all means. Says the Rach, Rabbeinu Chananel, brought in the Tosfos in Ksubis, T'kabola b'yadeinu. We have received the Masorah, we have been taught by our Rabbeim, says Rabbeinu Chananel, and we've talked about how important Rabbeinu Hananel is as the bridge between the Gaonim and the Rishonim. The Shuda Dadaini Dafke Bedayan Mumche Kerav Nachman Bedoro. The Shuda Dadaini only works with a Dayan Mumche with the highest level of Dayan like Rav Nachman is in his generation. Rav Sheshis Gavra Rabba Rav Sheshis was also a very great man. Rav Nachman Encho Dayan Lasot Shuda Dadaina. And Rav Nachman says, but you're not authorized to do Shuda Dadaina. This subjective judging that a judge is allowed to do in certain circumstances, you can't do, I can do, even though you're a very great man. So it's not just dependent on greatness, there's something else going on here. What is that something else? So our Tosfos goes into this and brings the Rashi and says that Rashi says, but it's based on the judge incorporating information that he personally knows, which didn't really come up in the case. It's not relevant to the case. I know the mother likes this son more than that son, and he judges accordingly. Says Rabbeinu Tam, he disagrees with Rashi on various different levels, and he says, Lekach Pirish Rabbeinu Tam, Shuda Dadaine, Dechol Ma Sheyirtzeh Hadayan La'asot Ya'aseh. There doesn't have to be a reason at all. The Dayan can just say, I think it belongs to Reuven. Why? Because of Shuda Dadaina. That's what I think. I feel that it belongs to Reuven. Have you got anything to support that? Nothing to support it. But I feel it nevertheless. It's an amazing concept there. The Torah will sometimes allow a Dayan to make a decision based only on his intuition. And then how is it enforceable? Explains Rabbeinu Tam, the Hefker, Beis Din Aya Hefker, because Beis Din has the authority to take money away from one person and give it to another person. That's part of Beis Din's authority. So once this Dayan says, I believe Reuven is right and not Shimon, he's entitled to give a court decree which establishes the money in the hands of Reuven from now onwards, irrespective of what happened before. That's Hefker Beis Din Hefker. And that's why, says Tosfos, you've got to have the authorized Beis Din of the city. It can't just be no matter how big a Talmid Chacham you are, it has to be Beis Din Tarich Dayan Kavua Lomar de Hefker Beis Din Aya Hefker. It's not that a lesser person doesn't have the same power of intuition. It's how will he execute on it? How will you enforce it? To enforce it, you need to be the authorized Beis Din of the city. And that was the case of Rav Nachman, where Rav Nachman had Dayan Kavua, and that's why Rav Sheshis couldn't enforce it. Says Tosfos, it's not that Rav Sheshis couldn't use his intuitive knowledge. Rav Sheshis was as great as Rav Nachman, but Rav Nachman was the Dayan, and therefore Rav Nachman could enforce it, and Rav Sheshis couldn't enforce it. The Tosfos HaRosh, if one learns the Tosfos HaRosh carefully, you'll see the Tosfos HaRosh sounds very much like Tosfos. He brings Rabbeinu Tam, disagrees with Rashi, all in the same way. But he doesn't mention anything about the reason for the need for a fixed Beis Din being the enforceability. He doesn't bring that in. He doesn't say it's because of Hefker Beis Din Hefker. Elavada lefishi talui bedat hadayan, says the Tosfos HaRosh. Since this is dependent on the intuitive decision of the judge, ein lo ladun ela dayan miyuchad k'mo Rav Nachman. You've got to be a very special judge. It's an individual judge that's head and shoulders above anybody else, like Rav Nachman. He was the son-in-law of the Reish Gelusa. And he had the responsibility of judging on behalf of the Reish Gelusa. He was the real formal representative of the Reish Gelusa in the court, in the system of courts, and therefore he had a higher level of authority. But he doesn't get onto Hefker Beis Din Hefker. So my question in learning this Gemara is, according to the Tosfos HaRosh, why does it matter what level you are? So again, Rashi says, Shuda Dadaina is the judge uses information, objective information, but not information that's relevant to the case, it's extraneous information. Tosfos says it's lefi rutzono, the chol ma sheyitzeh hadayan la'asot ya'aseh. That's Rabbeinu Tam. The Tosfos HaRosh agrees. It's whatever the judge wants to do, he does. So in that case, why Rav Nachman yes and Rav Sheshis no? Says Tosfos, because Rav Nachman has the authority to enforce. Tosfos HaRosh doesn't say it's about enforcement. He just says, since it's dependent on the subjective intuition of the judge, you need somebody of the stature of Rav Nachman, of the responsibility of Rav Nachman. So to understand that, one has to understand the power of Ratzon. And I often talk to you about in the mornings how it feels to me sometimes, and I know it's your schus, that the Malachim who teach me, Malachim who point things out to me, who give me what I need in order to understand the piece of Gemara that we're learning. And we've had recently several examples of it, and today we have another example of it. When I reached out my hand to take a sefer, and as you know, one of the Sforim I work on at the moment in the mornings, it's one of several, is the Shmoneh Kvotzim of Rav Kook, his journal entries. And it just felt like he had something to tell me about the Gemara. So I learned one paragraph. Then I put it away, and then I learned the Gemara. Now let me learn with you what Rav Kook said in the morning before we approach this Gemara. And you'll see the siyata dishmaya, when one's learning, and when one's teaching Torah, the miracles that come, the nisim are unbelievable. Just look at this. How does this start? This is just the next paragraph in the Sefer where I'm up to. Haratzon hu makor hachayim. Don't underestimate ratzon. When Rabbeinu Tam says, "D'chol ma sheyirtzeh hadayan la'asot," you should know that ratzon is makor hachayim. It's the source of life. Ratzon, will, intuition, desire is incredibly important. And then he goes on and he says, "Omnam ratzon hazeh tzarich hu pituach v'isui yoter mikol hakochot kulam." Ratzon needs more personal development than any other human characteristic. You've got to work on your ratzon, you've got to work on your desire, you've got to work on your intuition. Because when you start off as a child, then you've got to discipline your will. You've got to limit it, you've got to turn it upside down, you've got to shut it down. But then you get older and the will becomes a guidance for you. It's motivation, it drives you. The things that you want to do are the things you do well at. And there's a point in the life of a child where you shift from quelling the desire to encouraging the desire. And he says that's the hardest time of all, that pivot, when you've got to start realizing that desire is something you want to cultivate. It's not something that you want to quell. And this links to the idea we have in Pirkei Avos, aseh ritzoncha kiritzono. Get to the point where as you develop your ratzon, your will and God's will merge. It's not, I want to do X, but God says I must do B, so I'll do B, I'll do what God tells me to do. Now, that when you say I want, the I includes the Ribono Shel Olam. We've talked about that before in the Hakdama of the Shiur Yosher, of Reb Shimon Shkop to the Shiur Yosher, this idea of expanding the I. If the I is little me, I want, that's the child. I want to play. I don't want to go to sleep. I want to watch TV. That's the little I. But as a person grows and gets better, I is not just me. I is me, my family. I is me, my community. I is me, my nation. I is me, the world. I is me, the universe. I is me, the Ribono Shel Olam as well. The I gets bigger and bigger as you develop the I, and then the ratzon becomes not just the ratzon of I, the little ego, but it becomes the ratzon of the whole system. When I say I want something, this I that wants is the system of the universe controlled by the Ribono Shel Olam. That's the I that wants. And that's what a Godel B'Yisrael is. That's what a great Talmid Chacham is, a great Dayan. D'chol ma sheyirtzeh hadayan la'asot, you can trust that will. When the Dayan says, I think this is how it should be, it's not the little I talking. It's not I because I'm a buddy of this guy and I want to find in favor of him. I'm part of the system of the Ribono Shel Olam. And when I say I feel this is how it has to be, that intuition is not personal intuition. It's the intuition that comes from Kol Ha'olam Kulo. It comes from the whole system of the world that I feel the I. That's the level to which a human being is capable of developing his I, and the extent to which he's capable of developing his ratzon, what that ratzon means. There's the famous phrase that is used sometimes, that Hashchina medaberet mitoch geroino. Sometimes the Talmid Chacham speaks and he gives an opinion, and he doesn't have to give reasons, because Hashchina medaberet mitoch geroino. Through his throat, through his lips, Hashem is speaking. That it's possible for a human being to get to that level where that is the situation. And what we learn from the Tosfos HaRosh is it's not about execution. Part of being able to access accurate intuition. And now this becomes the whole thing. How do you know that your intuition is real? How do you know it's Hashem's intuition? How do you know it's the big intuition and not the small ego's intuition? One of the things that helps you access the true intuition is not just your greatness as a person, because that's the difficulty of the whole sugya in Ksubis. Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes are equally great. Why does Shudda Dadeyni work for Rav Nachman and not for Rav Sheshes? It says Tosfos because of execution. You can't execute unless you're the big guy. It says Tosfos HaRosh, no. It's because unless you have the responsibility of the community, you don't have the same siyata dishmaya. You don't have the same intuitive power. That's what responsibility does. When a person has achrayus, when a person has responsibility, the sharpness of his thinking, the depth of his feeling, the siyata dishmaya that comes with it is so enormous that person has the right to use shudda dadaina. A person who's equally great but doesn't have the responsibility is a completely different situation. And that's why it's so important in a kehillah, for example, to have a rov. You've got to have somebody whose head is on the block when a decision is made. It's not just a question of should we say avarachamim or shouldn't we say avarachamim. It's a question of what direction does the shul go in? What is the right thing to be doing? What type of Torah should the shul be teaching? A rov whose head is on the block is completely different from a person who's sitting around like I sit at KBA, I've given an opinion, and it doesn't make a big difference. It's not, your head isn't on the block. A person's a rov, and he has to make decisions for which he is responsible for the kehillah. His level of siyata dishmaya and achrayus is completely different. It was interesting, I'm reading Ricky Newman gave me a wonderful biography of Paul Reichman, of Moshe Reichman. And he gives a lot of money to a particular shul that he wanted to support. In the shul, they build a building, they build a shul, they get the minyan going, and Moshe Reichman doesn't turn up. There's 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. Eventually they go to him and they say, Moshe, this is your shul. You created the shul. Why have you never come to daven? He said, I will never daven in a shul that doesn't have a rov. They said, we've got lots of Talmidei Chachomim here. All the Talmidei Chachomim of the city are davening here. He said, but there's no rov. That's the achrayus. Shudda dadaina, Rav Nachman, yes. Rav Sheshes, no. Not because Rav Sheshes is any smaller than Rav Nachman, because of the responsibility Rav Nachman has as the representative of the Reish Kelusa in the system of the courts. He has a level of siyata dishmaya and deep intuition where the I becomes bigger than the individual and incorporates the system to the extent that with that siyata dishmaya, kol ma sherotzeh hadayan la'asot, whatever he feels is right, is a good thing to be doing, it's based on his ratzon, whatever he wants to do, that's what he does, and the Torah gives that the force of authority.